My contract marriage to the beautiful CEO was supposed to be fake. Turns out, she didn't get the memo. Her childhood sweetheart was back in town, and ever since his return, my wife had been coming home later and later. It didn't bother me. After all, ours was just a business arrangement. A bizarre one, to be sure. By some fluke, armed with a freshly printed and utterly useless degree in art history, I've been handpicked by Victoria Beaumont to be her husband. The pay? A cool 25 grand a month, tax-free. Now, with the contract nearing its end, I was doing my professional duty by not getting in the way of a rekindled romance. I quietly handled my last few tasks, packed my bags, and prepared to vanish. My plan was to disappear to some picturesque, off-the-grid paradise and live off my earnings. I was finally free, or so I thought. When I woke up the next morning, it wasn't to the sound of ocean waves. It was to the cold bite of chains on my wrists and ankles, securing me to the four posts of the bed. And there, perched over me, was my gorgeous CO wife, a slow, chilling smile spreading across her face. I don't recall saying you could leave, she purred, her eyes glinting with a feverish, crimson light. You have a lot of nerve trying to run away. Before I could process what was happening, she ripped my shirt open. The bedroom became a battlefield, and I was about to lose a war I never knew I was fighting. It had all started during my senior year of college. Graduation was looming, and my dead-end major had left me utterly unemployable. I tried applying for grad school, even looked into government jobs, but the competition was brutal. I was unceremoniously rejected from everything. Is it even possible to get a job in this economy? I groaned, slumping back in my desk chair and staring at the ceiling. Every interview I'd managed to land was a joke. One offered an unpaid internship with the promise of experience. Another wanted me to work 6 days a week with no benefits, no 401k, nothing. Just kill me now, I muttered. What kind of hell is this? Defeated, I opened my laptop and pulled up LinkedIn. I started shotgunning my resume to every opening the algorithm suggested, not even reading the descriptions. I must have sent out 1,000 applications that afternoon, maybe more. My fingers ached. My spirit was crushed. I crawled into bed and passed out. It was after 9 p.m. when my roommate, Dave, shook me awake. Leo, you okay, man? You've been out for hours. Seeing the worry on his face, I waved a hand dismissively. I'm fine. Just resumed fatigue. Needed a break. Dave looked relieved. Don't stress it, dude. You'll find something. I know you will. Thanks, man. No problem. Hey, I figured you missed dinner, so I grabbed you a brisket sandwich from that food truck you like. It's on your desk. I could have kissed him. You're a lifesaver. My hero. I hopped out of bed and unwrapped the sandwich. The smoky aroma filled our tiny dorm room. How much do I owe you? I'll Venmo you. I pulled out my phone. Don't worry about it. Just buy us around when you land that corner office job. You got it. I'll take you guys to a steakhouse. After devouring the sandwich, I went for a walk to clear my head. The campus track was buzzing with life, students jogging, couples strolling, a guy with a guitar singing off-key. It cheered me up, reminding me there was a world outside my job search misery. Suddenly, my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Good evening. Am I speaking with Leo Carter? A crisp, professional voice asked. We're calling from Apex Innovations. You. I almost hung up, assuming it was a scam call. But something made me pause. Fine, I thought. I'll play along. Might as well have some fun with it. Can you hear me, sir? The voice on the other end asked after a moment of silence. Yeah, loud and clear. Go on, I said, trying to sound serious. Excellent. We'd like to know if you're available to come to our office tomorrow for an in-person interview. A smirk crept onto my face. They were just trying to hit their interview quotas, calling in unqualified candidates to look busy. Sure, I can make it. Apex Innovations, you said? I'll be there. Wonderful. We look forward to meeting you. After hanging up, I stared at the call log and let out a cold laugh. Yeah, right? Like I'm actually going to that. Back in the dorm, I told my roommates about the scam call, expecting them to laugh with me. Instead, Matt, who was glued to his phone, gasped. Whoa, dude. Apex Innovations is legit. They're like the hottest new tech firm in Austin. He explained that Apex was a rising star in the tech world, a powerhouse of innovation. What? Then why would they want to interview me? I was floored. So were my roommates. When you get rich, don't forget us, they chanted, slapping me on the back. They're probably just using my resume to meet a diversity quota or something. I mumbled. It was the only explanation that made any sense. Why else would a top-tier tech company want an art history major? Go anyway, Frank urged. What have you got to lose? It's good practice. Yeah, you never know, Dave added. What if you actually get it? They had a point. It was a free shot. And if by some miracle I actually landed the job, it would be life-changing. The next morning, I did my best to look presentable, borrowing a button-down shirt from Matt that was only slightly too big. Staring at my reflection, I managed a weak smile. I looked like a kid playing dress-up. "Wish me luck, boys," I said, shutting the door behind me. "Your dad is going to bring home the bacon." Standing at the base of the gleaming Apex Innovations Tower, a monolith of steel and glass piercing the Austin sky, my confidence evaporated. How could I, of all people, ever get a job at a place like this? My earlier bravado felt foolish. I was completely out of my league. I checked in at the front desk, and a polite receptionist escorted me to the elevator. As we ascended, I squeezed my eyes shut, taking deep breaths. The glass walls of the elevator showed the city shrinking below, and my stomach churned with anxiety. The elevator chimed and stopped. I started to step out, but the receptionist gently stopped me. "Not our floor yet." "Oh, right. Sorry." I shuffled back, mortified. "Just get this over with," I pleaded with the universe. Just then, the doors slid open again, and a woman stepped in. She was breathtaking, dressed in a sleek, tailored pantsuit that was both casual and powerful. The receptionist immediately straightened up. "Good morning, Ms. Beaumont. Is this one of the candidates for the opening?" the woman asked, her gaze sweeping over me for a fraction of a second before dismissing me. "Yes, ma'am," the receptionist replied respectfully. "Ma'am? I thought. Wait, Ms. Beaumont? The CEO?" I couldn't believe I was sharing an elevator with the head of the entire company. My anxiety spiked. She was so young, so poised. In my mind, CEOs were supposed to be grizzled men in their 50s. The elevator finally reached the interview floor. The CEO strode out first. The receptionist led me to a waiting area, where a line of men in expensive, perfectly tailored suits sat in rigid silence. They looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I looked down at my worn jeans and ill-fitting shirt. We weren't even in the same universe. "Hey, I whispered to the guy next to me, who sat as straight as a board. "You guys all here for the interview?" He gave me a strange look, as if I just crawled out from under a rock. "Yes," he said, his voice a perfect, resonant baritone. Then he turned away and meticulously adjusted his tie, making it clear our conversation was over. The brief exchange killed any remaining desire I had to socialize. One by one, the candidates were called in. My heart pounded in my chest. Should I just leave? I wondered. But the thought of facing my roommates after bailing was too humiliating. I forced myself to stay put, repeating a silent mantra. Don't be nervous, they're all just big, dumb idiots." After an hour and a half that felt like a lifetime, it was finally my turn. I walked in to find 3 people sitting behind a long table. There was a woman with glasses who looked incredibly stern, and next to her, a man with a much warmer, friendlier expression. At the far end, silent and observing, was the CEO I'd met in the elevator. My heart did a somersault, but I managed to walk to the chair and sit down without tripping. The stern woman glanced at me, then backed down at my resume. "Mr. Carter, please tell us what you know about our company." I'd done a quick Google search before I left, so I rattled off what little I knew about Apex's market position and recent projects. She just nodded, making notes on my resume with a red pen. I had no idea if that was a good or a bad sign. She followed up with a few more generic questions, none of which had anything to do with my major. In fact, my entire academic background seemed completely irrelevant to their business. To this day, I still don't understand how my resume even made it through their system. Had I even applied to this specific job? After about 10 minutes, she looked up at me. "One last question. What are your long-term career goals?" My career goals? I thought for a moment. My first instinct was to parrot some canned answer I'd found online. But then I figured, what did I have to lose? Honestly, I said, deciding to just go for it. My goal is to make enough money to be comfortable. From the other end of the table, I heard the friendly-looking man let out a small chuckle. The stern woman remained impassive. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll be in touch within 1 to 3 business days with our decision." As I was leaving, I glanced back. The friendly interviewer was leaning over, pointing at my resume and laughing with the stern woman, who looked like she was trying to fight off a smile. And at the end of the table, the CEO, the one who hadn't said a word, was staring down at my file, a pensive, unreadable expression on her face. I walked out of the building and back into the bright Austin sun. Well, I thought, that's that. I'm the kind of person who gets bummed out easily, but I also bounce back fast. I wandered around downtown for a bit, treated myself to a decent lunch, and then hopped on a bus back to campus. When I got back to the dorm, I gave my roommates the play-by-play of the interview. They were disappointed for me, but quick with the encouragement. "Don't worry about it, man," Frank said. "You'll find something soon." Their support meant a lot. To thank them, I took them all out for a big dinner that night. I figured, who knows when I'll land a job, and by then we'll all be scattered across the country. Might as well celebrate now. After that, it was back to the grind. Day after day of tweaking my resume, writing cover letters, and sending applications into the digital void. The interview at Apex faded into a distant memory, just one more rejection in a long line of them. Then, 3 weeks later, my phone rang. "Good afternoon. Is this Leo Carter?" The voice was familiar. "This is Apex Innovations. We're delighted to inform you that you've passed our interview process. If you're still interested, we'd like you to come in on Monday to complete your onboarding paperwork. We will be sending an email with a list of required documents shortly." The woman paused. "If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us." I was stunned. Which company was this again? I had to check the email they sent to remember it was Apex, the interview from 3 weeks ago. I couldn't believe it. I'd actually gotten the job. I immediately texted my roommates, and that night, we went out for another, even bigger celebration. On Monday morning, I stood once again before the magnificent Apex Tower, but this time my heart was soaring. I was actually going to work here. I checked in with the receptionist, and soon I was back in that same familiar, glass-walled elevator. She led me to an office on one of the top floors. After she knocked, a voice from inside said, "Come in." The receptionist gestured for me to enter, then turned and left. I nervously pushed the door open and stepped inside. Sitting behind a large mahogany desk was the CEO, Victoria Beaumont. She was engrossed in a file, only looking up when she heard my footsteps. Her eyes met mine. "Have a seat," she said, her voice cool and even. "Okay." I looked around the opulent office before awkwardly perching on the edge of a leather sofa. For what felt like an eternity, she continued to work in silence. Finally, after nearly half an hour, she stood up, retrieved a folder from a cabinet, and handed it to me. "Read this over," she said. "If you agree to the terms, sign it." "Great, thank you." I was a little surprised the CEO herself was handling my new hire paperwork, but I wasn't about to question it. I took the folder, opened it, and my jaw dropped. I shot up from the sofa. Marriage. I was speechless. What she'd handed me wasn't an employment contract. It was a marriage agreement. It stated in black and white that I was to marry a woman named Victoria Beaumont. It was a contract marriage designed to placate her family. In return, I would receive a monthly salary of $25,000. My only duty was to play the part of her loving husband at specific family functions. Victoria seemed completely unfazed by my shock. She gracefully sat down on the sofa across from me, her posture perfect. The line of her neck was elegant and pale. "Are the terms not to your satisfaction?" she asked calmly. "We can negotiate." I pointed a trembling finger at the name on the document. "This, Victoria Beaumont. Is that me?" she said, her expression as placid as if she were discussing the weather. I looked at her stunning face, her powerful position as CEO. Why on earth would she choose me for this? But then again, who cares why? An opportunity like this wasn't something you questioned. With a surge of adrenaline, I snatched a pen from the coffee table and signed my name with a flourish. What was there to be dissatisfied with? $25,000 a month? Most college grads would kill for a salary like that. This wasn't a job. It was a winning lottery ticket. She seemed pleased with my quick compliance. She took one copy of the agreement and handed me the other. Then, with a slight flick of her wrist, she motioned for me to follow her out of the office. I trailed behind her like a nervous puppy, ready to do whatever she said. She was my boss, my benefactor, my financial savior. As we walked through the open plan office, employees nodded respectfully, murmuring, "Ms. Beaumont." I felt a strange mix of pride and shame, like I was some kind of trophy husband, a kept man. But who cared what they thought? I was making bank, and it was all perfectly legal and, in a weird way, ethical. It was just a job. Downstairs, she tossed me a set of keys. "Can you drive?" Looking at the Porsche logo on the fob, I was about to admit that I hadn't touched a steering wheel since I got my license. But I stopped myself. What if she fired me over it? This was a $25,000 a month gig. There was no way I was letting it slip away. "Yes," I said with a confidence I absolutely did not feel. I fumbled my way to the parking garage and, with trembling hands, managed to pull her luxury car out onto the street without hitting anything. Thankfully, after a few blocks, the muscle memory from driver's ed started to kick in. She didn't seem to notice I was a complete novice and slid into the passenger seat. "Where to Ms. Beaumont?" I asked respectfully. She buckled her seatbelt and glanced at her phone, not even looking at me. "City Hall." "What?" I blurted out. "We were getting married now. Is there a problem?" Her sharp gaze shot over to me. I quickly waved my hands. No, it's just, we need to go to City Hall for a fake marriage. Couldn't we just get a fake certificate?" "No, My parents have connections. They can check if it's real. Her parents? So this was all because she was being pressured to get married. I guess even a powerful CEO isn't immune to that. It was almost tragic. If I were that successful, my family would. Well, they'd probably still pester me about settling down. The older generation was all the same. Once your career was on track, it was time for the grand finale, marriage. Man, life is tough for everyone, I thought, casting a sympathetic look her way. She seemed to notice my gaze, because a slight frown creased her brow, and she turned to look out the window. The car moved at a crawl through the Austin traffic. Anyone watching would have praised me for being such a safe, law-abiding driver. But my passenger was less than impressed. Victoria's brow furrowed. Can you speed up? At this rate. Safety first, Ms. Beaumont, I said, though I did press the accelerator a little harder. We had just been overtaken by a guy on a bicycle. Somehow, we made it to City Hall in one piece. The company had already told me to bring my driver's license and birth certificate, which I thought was strange at the time. Now it all made sense. We filled out the paperwork, and a short while later, we were officially married. Staring at our picture on the marriage license, I felt a wave of disbelief. If I told anyone this story, they'd think I was insane. I let out a sigh, only to hear a cool voice from behind me. We're going to my house. What? I nearly shouted. I lowered my voice, asking cautiously, your house? Isn't that a little fast? She glanced at me, and for the first time, she seemed a little uncomfortable too. Already told my parents I got married. They're expecting to meet you. Her words sent a jolt of panic through me. We just got the license, and now I have to meet the parents? I wasn't ready for this. Ms. Beaumont, I asked as we walked back to the car. Should I buy them something? A gift? The parents of a CEO had to be intimidating, discerning people. They'd see right through me. She shook her head. I've already taken care of it. Oh, okay. I didn't know what else to say. When we're there, she said suddenly, if my parents ask about us, just smile and nod. That's it. But won't that seem rude? I hesitated. It'll look even more fake. It's fine, she said dismissively. I'll do the talking. The more you say, the more chances you have to slip up. Soon, we arrived at her family's home, a sprawling, modern villa in the West Lake Hills. It was exactly what you'd expect from the super rich. I got out, and on instinct, rushed around to open her door for her. Anyone watching would have thought I was her driver. Little did they know, I was the husband of this stunningly beautiful and powerful woman. I retrieved the expensive-looking gifts from the trunk and followed her inside. As we approached the front door, an older couple with warm, welcoming smiles appeared. Mom, Dad, what are you doing waiting out here? Victoria asked. Mom and Dad? So these are my new in-laws. I remember my instructions. Just smile. So this is our new son-in-law, the woman said, her eyes twinkling. They weren't the cold, calculating parents from a bad TV drama. They were genuinely thrilled. They took the gifts from my hands, chiding me gently. You came all this way. You didn't need to bring anything. Come on in, son, her husband said, clapping me on the shoulder. They ushered me inside, leaving their own daughter trailing behind. Victoria didn't seem offended. She just shot me a look that said, don't mess this up, and followed us in. Once inside, her parents completely monopolized me. They were beaming as they asked about my family, my background, everything. I couldn't just smile and nod at direct questions, so I glanced at Victoria for permission. She gave a subtle nod, and I answered as best I could. For some reason, they seemed completely charmed by me. They kept telling me to be patient with Victoria's difficult personality, explaining that even though she seemed cold, she was a good kid deep down. Then they proceeded to gleefully recount every embarrassing story from her childhood. Mom, Dad, Victoria finally cut in, her face flushed with annoyance. Who embarrasses their daughter in front of her new husband on their first meeting? Her mother ignored her, patting my hand affectionately. You see, he's such a wonderful boy. So much better than that Julian Vance. Mom. Victoria's voice was sharp with warning. She shot a look from her mother to me. I immediately got the message. This was high-level family drama I was not cleared to hear. I tried to mentally tune out, but I'd already put the pieces together. I was the stand-in for her, one that got away, this Julian guy. Based on every novel I'd ever read, he was the unattainable first love who'd probably gone abroad, and I, Leo Carter, just happened to look enough like him to be a convenient replacement. It explained everything. I was a genius. I wanted to give myself a pat on the back, but Victoria's warning glare stopped me. Hey, it's not my fault, I thought. Your mom is the one spilling all the tea. I wanted to cover my ears, but her parents were each holding one of my hands. Fine, fine, her mother said, turning away from Victoria's glare. We just think Leo is a fine young man. They then gave me a grand tour of the villa. At lunch, they insisted on cooking for me themselves. I'd picked up some decent cooking skills over the years, so I jumped in to help, chopping vegetables and helping with prep. They were even more impressed. Victoria, however, looked less and less pleased. Oh crap. In my effort to charm her parents, I'd forgotten my place and upstaged the boss. During the meal, I tried to recover by relentlessly praising Victoria's intelligence and kindness. But it didn't seem to work. Her expression remained icy. Worse, my compliments seemed to backfire with her parents. "Oh, you poor thing," her mother said, looking at me with pity. "You must have your hands full with her. We know what she's like." After lunch and a bit more small talk, Victoria poked me in the arm, signaling it was time to go. We said our goodbyes, politely declining her parents' pleas for us to stay longer, and got back in the car. The drive back was silent. Victoria didn't say a word, and I didn't dare ask what was on her mind. Why borrow trouble? I just focused on driving. When we got back to Apex, she gave her assistant a few instructions and then disappeared into her office without so much as a glance in my direction. I was left standing there, completely lost. It had been an overwhelming day. "Mr. Carter," the assistant, a sharp-looking woman in a stylish suit, approached me. "Ms. Beaumont asked me to give you this." She handed me a manila envelope. "Thank you. You're welcome." She didn't leave, just stood there waiting. I ignored her and sat on the sofa, opening the envelope. Inside was a set of keys, a black credit card, and a single sheet of paper. I unfolded the paper. It read, "One key is for the villa. The other is for the car I've arranged for you. You can use it as you please. It would be best if you moved into the villa today. My parents may drop by unannounced, and I need you to be there. I will deposit your salary onto the enclosed card each month. The PIN is the last 6 digits of your social security number. I have listed additional terms below. Please read and adhere to them carefully." The list below basically boiled down to 3 rules. We would have separate rooms. Neither of us was to enter the other's space without permission. A housekeeper would handle cleaning. Her needs were my top priority. I had to be available for her at all times, except in the case of a genuine family emergency, which required advance notice. Otherwise, my time was my own. During the term of the agreement, I was forbidden from telling anyone about our arrangement. If the secret got out because of me, I would have to repay 3 times my total salary. These points were already in the main contract, but she'd clearly written this summary because she didn't trust me to read the fine print. I stuffed everything back into the envelope and looked up at the assistant, who was still standing there. I let out a deep, satisfied sigh. Honestly, this was perfect. I wasn't going to be one of those sappy protagonists from a romance novel who gets all weepy because the cold CEO is ignoring him. I wasn't going to try and win her over by waiting up every night to make her a hot meal, or learn ancient massage techniques to soothe her headaches. And I definitely wasn't going to stress about what to get her for her birthday or our anniversary, only to get my heart broken when I saw her with another man. Give me a break. A professional acts like a professional. Cleaning? Cooking? She had staff for that. Did I really think my culinary skills could compete with the professional chefs? As for illnesses, there are doctors and hospitals. The idea that I could take a weekend course in alternative medicine and suddenly cure her was laughable. And gifts? A woman like her had seen and owned everything. She wasn't going to be moved by some handmade trinket. That was just self-indulgent nonsense. The thought of having to do all that was exhausting. The fact that Victoria clearly wanted none of it from me was a massive relief. I was ecstatic. No responsibilities, a huge villa, gourmet food, and a $25,000 monthly paycheck. Was this real life? I pinched my thigh. Hard. I winced. It was real. It's real. Whoa, who read my mind? I looked up to see the assistant watching me with an amused smile. Could you please tell Miss Beaumont I've received this? And thank her for me. I was mortified. She must have seen my stupid, greedy grin. The assistant simply nodded. Of course. She turned and walked away. Phew. I clutched the envelope, giddy with joy. I whipped out my phone and immediately messaged my roommates. Boys, dinner is on Dad tonight. Pick the most expensive place in town. We're going all out. That evening, 4 figures stumbled down a street in downtown Austin, arms slung over each other's shoulders, all thoroughly drunk. In the end, my roommates didn't pick an expensive restaurant. We ended up at a dive barbecue joint, ordering mountains of ribs and brisket and washing it all down with cheap beer. A wave of melancholy washed over me. We'd lived together for 4 years, becoming closer than family. In a few short months, we'd all be gone. It's okay, I said, trying to lift the mood. Once we're all settled in our jobs, we'll get together all the time. A heavy silence fell over the table. We all knew the truth. For most people, once you part ways, that's it. We'd probably be like everyone else, slowly drifting apart as time went on. But the moment we were in right now was real, and the bond we shared was undeniable. I'm heading back to Ohio, Frank said suddenly. He found a decent job near his hometown. He was raised by a single mom, and her health wasn't great. He wanted to be close by to take care of her. I'm moving to Florida, Dave announced. We all knew his girlfriend was from there. For a guy from Montana, it was a cross-country journey for love. I'm staying here for my master's, Matt said. He got into a great program at UT and had been working his butt off since junior year, interning and assisting professors. Listening to them all, with their futures so clearly mapped out, I felt a surge of emotion. I grabbed a stray twig from the ground and brandished it like a sword. Well, I'm going to be a trophy husband. The others stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. Hope you find a rich sugar mama to take care of you. Careful you don't have to scrub floors with a toothbrush. You think you can handle it, man? If you need a break, your boys have got your back. We were all howling with laughter, picking up more twigs, and mock dueling in the street. We were just four guys messing around, trying to hold on to the last few moments of our youth together. Suddenly, a black Porsche purred to a stop beside us. The tinted window slid down, revealing the impossibly elegant face of Victoria Beaumont. Get in, she said. My friends and I froze. They pointed dumbly from her to me, their mouths agape. The alcohol evaporated from my system instantly. This was my benefactor, my boss. I couldn't keep her waiting. Gotta go, guys. I yelled, waving frantically. It's been real. See you around. As they stared in stunned silence, I instinctively moved to open the back door, then remembered this wasn't an Uber. I quickly corrected, sliding into the passenger seat with an apologetic smile. Sorry, I mumbled as soon as I got in. Today was because. You don't need to apologize, she cut me off, her voice cool. I was just in the area and saw you. It's a ride, that's all. She cracked the window, a clear sign that the smell of beer on my breath was offending her. I shut my mouth. The silence in the car was thick and heavy. Maybe I should drive. I blurted out, forgetting for a second that I was drunk. It just felt wrong for my boss to be chauffeuring me. Victoria shot me a sideways glance. Her tone was flat, unreadable. No need. So that was that. We drove the rest of the way to the villa in absolute silence. I'd already moved my essential belongings over that afternoon. Once inside, Victoria went straight to her room, leaving me standing awkwardly in the grand foyer. The separate rooms had their own bathrooms, so I took a quick shower, then lay in bed scrolling through my phone. My boss clearly didn't need me for anything, so my best bet was to stay out of her way and not cause any trouble. After all, I was just a stand-in. The combination of alcohol and the day's excitement started to catch up with me, and I felt a wave of drowsiness. I decided to use the restroom one last time before bed. As I opened my bedroom door, I heard a faint tapping sound from the living room. I peeked through the crack and saw Victoria, changed into a simple set of silk pajamas, sitting on the sofa with her laptop. Her expression was serious as she worked, the screen casting a pale blue light on her face. No wonder she's a CEO at her age, I thought. Me? I was born lazy. Time for bed. I used the bathroom, felt a wave of relief, and crawled back under the covers. I was asleep in seconds. The next morning, bright sunlight streamed through the window, making me frown. I was sure I'd closed the curtains. I sat up, my entire body aching. It felt like I'd been run over by a truck. Weird. A little beer shouldn't do that. After a quick shower, I opened my door to find breakfast already laid out on the kitchen island, along with a note. Eat, then report to the office. Read the contract. I immediately grabbed the contract and scanned it again. Sure enough, buried in the fine print, was a clause stating that during the term of our agreement, I was to serve as the CEO's executive assistant. It all clicked. I hadn't just been drunk yesterday. I'd skipped my first day of work. No wonder she was so pissed. This 25 grand a month job wasn't going to be a cakewalk after all. I wolfed down the slightly burnt toast and rushed to the office, terrified she might dock my pay. When I arrived, people greeted me with respectful nods. Mr. Carter, they'd say, and the title of executive assistant made me puff my chest out with pride. I knocked on her office door before entering. Ms. Beaumont, what can I do for you? Victoria sat behind her desk, looking through a report. Her gold-rimmed glasses and silk blouse gave her an aura of untouchable glamour. Sit over there, she said, gesturing to an empty desk beside hers. Review these files and tell me what you think. So it was a test. I knew the money wouldn't be that easy to earn. I took a deep breath and sat down, diving into the documents. After a long while, Victoria put down her own work and looked at me, her expression as cool as ever. Well, your analysis? I set the papers down and organized my thoughts. Okay, so out of these proposals, I believe the first one. I laid out my detailed critique of each plan, pointing out their strengths and weaknesses. Victoria listened with an impassive face. When I finished, she simply nodded. Not bad. A wave of pleasure washed over me. I'm a simple man. Praise works on me. We'll proceed with your recommendation, she said. What? She just raised an eyebrow and returned to her work, offering no further explanation. She trusted me that much, and just like that, the first project I ever worked on was greenlit. A few months later, it turned out to be a huge success. After that, Victoria began taking me to every important meeting. She entrusted me with project reports, management oversight, and major responsibilities. The people in the office who initially thought I was just some boy toy she'd picked up started to respect me for my actual competence. Slowly, I began to piece together a theory for why she was helping me so much. First, I probably look a lot like her great love, Julian. By building me up, she was paving the way for his return. If people already liked a guy who looked like him, it would be easier for him to integrate. Second, as her husband, my competence reflected on her. She couldn't have people thinking she married a useless idiot. Third, Victoria had rivals in the company. By fast-tracking my development, she was creating a loyal and capable ally to help her consolidate power. And so, for the next 2 years, I was immersed in the corporate world. My skills grew exponentially. I knew that even when our 3-year contract was up, I'd be able to land a high-paying job anywhere. My relationship with Victoria thawed from icy professionalism to a comfortable familiarity. But she remained an enigma, her face a mask of cool indifference. It seemed nothing could truly faze her. Well, almost nothing. There were a few times. One night, I woke up starving. I tiptoed to the kitchen and made myself a bowl of instant mac and cheese, the cheesy aroma filling the quiet house. I sat down at the kitchen island and was about to take my first blissful bite when I heard a distinct gurgle from the living room. I looked over and saw Victoria sitting on the sofa in the dark, her laptop open. She'd startled me. I hadn't even realized she was there. You want some? I asked, gesturing with my fork. The stomach growl had to have been hers. She glanced at my bowl, then turned away. I figured she was too sophisticated for something so pedestrian. But the next moment, she closed her laptop, walked over, took my bowl of mac and cheese, and started eating it in small, delicate bites. Okay then, you win. I went back and made myself another bowl, this time adding bacon bits. I sat down, and just as I took my first bite, I felt a pair of eyes on me. I looked up to see Victoria staring at my bowl with a strange, resentful look. I silently pointed at my bowl with a questioning expression. Without a word, she swapped her half-eaten bowl, the one she'd been eating from, for my fresh one. You gotta be kidding me. I stared at the bowl she'd left me, contemplating the mysteries of germ theory. Oh, what the hell? I dug in. Man, it was good. Another time, I got really into drawing. After weeks of practice, I produced what I considered to be a masterpiece. A cute anime-style girl in a school uniform. I proudly hung it on the living room wall, planning to take it down before Victoria got home. But I got called into the office for an emergency and forgot. When I returned, the girl in my drawing was no longer wearing a short, pleated skirt. Someone had drawn a long, flowing one over it. The only other person in the house was Victoria, who was sitting on the sofa, reading a book. The neighbor's kid did it, she said without looking up. It was true that one of the executives sometimes brought his kids over, right? I believed her. With a heavy heart, I started to take the drawing down. Leave it, she commanded. I looked at her, confused. She coughed lightly. It's not bad. Then she turned and went back to her room. A huge grin spread across my face. She had good taste. Then there was the time the company offered a flower arrangement class. I joined for fun and, to my shock, won first prize. I was so proud I placed my creation in the most prominent spot in the living room, thinking it added a nice touch of color to the minimalist space. The next day, half of my flowers were gone, replaced by different ones I didn't recognize. The entire arrangement had been altered. It looked better, actually, more elegant. I made some improvements, Victoria said, walking past. She glanced at me, then at the vase, and a faint, smug smile touched her lips. The nerve. This was workplace harassment. And so, my defaced drawing and her improved flower arrangement became permanent fixtures in our living room. The first things you saw when you walked in the door. It was kind of embarrassing. Our lives fell into a strange, comfortable rhythm. On holidays, I'd go with her to her parents' house, and she would even come with me to visit mine. I'd initially thought that was unnecessary. The deal was just to fool her parents. But Victoria had explained, my parents will want to meet yours eventually. It's inevitable. She was right. Soon, our parents were best friends. Victoria's mom and dad were incredibly down-to-earth, never looking down on my family for a modest background. My dad and her dad would play chess for hours, and sometimes they'd sneak off to go fishing, coming home with store-bought fish to save face after catching nothing. My mom and her mom would go shopping, get their hair done, and even take trips together, leaving the two old guys behind. "Oh, darling, thank you for letting Leo marry my daughter," her mom would say to mine. "You know how she can be." No, I should be thanking Victoria for giving my lazy boy a purpose in life," my mom would reply. The two of them were inseparable. They even started buying baby clothes and cribs. How did my life get this complicated? What? A wedding? I stared at her in disbelief. Victoria was frowning too, a rare look of distress on her face. "My parents are insisting," she said. "They won't let it go." It made sense. I was their precious daughter's husband, but all we'd done was sign a piece of paper at City Hall. She deserved a real wedding. "Do we really have to?" I asked. "When the time comes." Victoria sighed. "Yes, we have to. We'll just go through the motions to keep them happy." Okay, it was just a ceremony. Why did I suddenly feel so nervous? We started meeting with wedding planners, and Victoria threw herself into the preparations. She seemed surprisingly invested. It was, I figured, her first and only wedding. It was natural for her to want it to be perfect. Only later did I realize the real reason for her enthusiasm. "What? I'm on my way." Victoria's voice was tense as she hung up the phone. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated, her brow furrowed. "There's a problem at the factory that handled our last project. We need to go there now." "Okay, let's go." I grabbed my jacket and followed her out. A light rain was falling as we left the office. I ran ahead to the garage to get the car. After 2 years of driving her Porsche, I was practically a professional. On the way, Victoria was silent, her frown deepening. She seemed to be wrestling with something important. The factory was in a remote area outside the city. The rain and slick roads forced me to drive slower than usual, but we were making good time. "Wait," Victoria started to say, but it was too late. There was a loud pop, and the car swerved violently. I fought the wheel. Using every bit of skill, I had to bring the car to a screeching halt. We'd stopped inches from sliding under a semi-truck that was hurtling past. We both sat there for a moment, hearts pounding, our faces pale. Victoria's eyes narrowed. She threw open her door and got out. I followed. Lying on the road behind us was a row of spike strips, and standing in front of us was a group of men in ski masks, holding tire irons. They were not here to help. "You're Mark Jennings' men, aren't you?" Victoria's voice was ice. Mark was the leader of a rival faction at the company, her biggest enemy. "I can't believe you'd stoop to something this crude to lure me out here." It all made sense now. She had sensed something was wrong, but the warning came too late. "Whatever he's paying you, I'll give you 10 times more," she said, trying to reason with them. "You know who's in charge of the company now. I can forgive this. I'll even give you better positions, as long as you testify that Mark sent you." I couldn't help but roll my eyes. "Lady, that only works in the movies." The men didn't answer. They just started advancing. Victoria sighed, then turned to me. Her usual cold demeanor was gone, replaced by a strange vulnerability. She even managed a small, sad smile. "When I give a signal, you run. I've had self-defense training. I can handle this." "What the hell? Run." Of course I was going to run. "See ya." I turned and bolted. Victoria watched me go, a flicker of loneliness and sorrow in her eyes. Then she took a deep breath, pulled a small, wicked-looking blade from her purse, and braced herself for the attack. Thwack, thwack, crack. A series of sickening crunches echoed in the rain. Victoria's eyes went wide. Standing in front of her, where the thugs had been, was a figure holding a tightly rolled black umbrella. All around him, the masked men were groaning on the wet pavement. I turned back to face her, a grin spreading across my face. Turns out, I know a few moves myself. For the first time since I'd met her, a genuine, radiant smile lit up Victoria Beaumont's face. "Boss, are we there yet?" I grumbled. I was carrying Victoria on my back while she held the umbrella over us, trudging down a deserted country road. She claimed she'd twisted her ankle getting out of the car, so now I was her personal transport. To make matters worse, there was no cell service out here. The factory was obviously a trap, and the car was useless. Our only hope was to walk until we found a passing car to flag down. But the road remained stubbornly empty. Looking back, it seems almost surreal. Just me and Victoria, alone in the vast, quiet countryside, with only the sound of the rain and our footsteps on the pavement. I remember she talked more that day than she had in the entire 2 years I'd known her. Maybe she was trying to distract me from the exertion, telling me stories and asking questions to keep my mind off my aching back. Eventually, we reached a spot with a single bar of service. After we got back, I don't know what strings Victoria pulled, but Mark Jennings and his entire faction were swiftly and brutally dismantled. She was left in complete control of the company. My own status skyrocketed. Everyone treated me with a new level of reverence. And just like that, the days ticked by, and our wedding day drew closer. And right on cue, news arrived that Julian Vance was coming back to the States. I knew it was time for me to go. It all made sense now. The reason Victoria was so invested in the wedding was because it was never for me. It was for him. She was going to have Julian dramatically interrupt the ceremony and take my place. I was just the disposable background character in her grand romantic gesture. And you know what? I was thrilled. The 3-year contract was almost up, I'd done my job, and I now had a fat bank account and a killer resume. To avoid the humiliating cliche where the white moonlight returns to insult the stand-in, leading to a messy love triangle and a pathetic firing, I decided to make a clean break. First, I secretly sent my parents on an all-expenses-paid trip to Europe, making them promise not to tell anyone, not even Victoria or her parents. They were confused, but they agreed. Next, I quietly began handing off my responsibilities at work. On the day Julian was scheduled to land, I was on a one-way flight out of the country. I ended up in a beautiful resort in Costa Rica. I had no doubt they couldn't find me. I'd used burner phones, switched cars, and paid for everything in cash. For a glorious month, I cut myself off from the world and just enjoyed life. Finally, exhausted from all the fun, I returned to my hotel room one night, planning my next destination. And then, where am I? I woke up not in my hotel, but in a strange bedroom. It was feminine, with a light floral scent in the air. My hands and feet were bound. When I looked around, a cold dread washed over me. The walls were covered with pictures of me. Hundreds of them. From my 3rd grade school photo to my college graduation. Every stage of my life, every expression, every place. Me eating, sleeping, playing basketball, riding my bike. The person who took these photos had been watching me my entire life. This is insane. I was panicking when I smelled a familiar perfume. A slender, delicate hand traced a line on my jaw, then moved up to my nose, my eyes, caressing my face like I was a priceless work of art. I could feel hot, ragged breaths on my skin. Boss, I managed, my voice trembling. Standing over me was Victoria. What is? She didn't answer. Instead, she crushed her lips against mine. It wasn't a kiss. It was an invasion. I tasted blood as her tongue forced its way into my mouth, tangling with mine. When she finally pulled back, we were both breathless, our faces flushed, a single, glistening thread of saliva connecting us. Boss, you. Haha, you're reacting, she whispered, her voice husky and triumphant. All those nights I spent working on you, making sure we were a perfect match. It all paid off. Her smile was manic, unhinged. She stroked my cheek again. Why did you run, Leo? I love you so much. I would give up everything for you. Why would you run away from me? I was speechless. She had lost her mind. Ha ha, boss, you've got the wrong guy. I stammered, trying to reason with her. I'm not Julian. I'm Leo. Let me go, you need to find. She silenced me with another bruising kiss. I know exactly who you are, Leo Carter, she said, her words a breathy, possessive hiss. What? My mind reeled. Then I remembered the wall of photos, the way she would stare at her laptop late at night. And something else. A faint, nagging memory. You. She laughed, a low, throaty sound, and snuggled up against my side. Do you remember, Leo? The first time we met, you were in 3rd grade, and I was in middle school. You were lost and crying, and I found you. We played in the park all afternoon. I remember when I took you back to your parents, you looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes and said, "Thank you, big sister." In that moment, it was like I was struck by lightning. I thought it was just because you were a cute kid. But then, as I got older, I met other kids, other handsome and talented boys, and none of them ever made me feel that way. Nothing compared to that jolt I felt when I was with you. Then I saw you again. You were a freshman in high school, laughing as you rode your bike. The moment I saw you, that same jolt shot through my entire body. I had to run away just so I could go home and change my clothes. Her voice grew deeper, more seductive, as her hand moved lower. It was fate, Leo. You promised you'd marry me when you grew up. I've finally raised you to the perfect age. I don't have to hold back anymore. Do you have any idea what it was like seeing you every day, having to hide how I felt, terrified I would scare you away? Although, she purred, a wicked glint in her eyes, I suppose I did get a little taste from the very beginning. But somehow I never get tired of it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was all starting to connect. The job offer, her feigned indifference, the way she cultivated our relationship, even the accidents. And the constant, unexplained soreness I felt every morning. I finally understood. Seeing the dawning horror on my face, Victoria let go of her last shred of restraint. Now, she whispered, her voice dripping with possessive hunger. It's time for your punishment. The bedroom filled with sounds that were anything but subtle. I gave in. I tried to fight back, to reclaim some control, but in every battle that followed, I was brutally reminded of who was in charge. I had hoped to be the master of my own destiny, but I had no idea I was facing a tidal wave. Later, lying in her arms, I asked, "So what was the deal with Julian Vance?" Victoria laughed, a warm, contented sound, and hugged me tighter. "Are you jealous?" "I love it." Seeing the genuine confusion still in my eyes, she explained, "Because your wife is a very desirable woman, darling. If I had gone after you from the start, you would have been targeted by every jealous man out there." Julian is gay. He needed a cover to hide his relationship with his boyfriend, so we agreed to help each other out. As we got older and had our own power, he finally felt brave enough to go abroad with his partner and get married. He only came back this time to make their relationship public. So, my entire worldview had been shattered. I stared at the ceiling, holding Victoria, my mind blank. "Ready for another round?" She whispered in my ear. "What?" "We had a magnificent wedding. All our friends and family were there to celebrate with us. At the reception, I saw Julian and his now husband sharing a passionate embrace. They looked over at us and smiled, a knowing look in their eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. Later, he invited me over to his house. I politely declined. I had once dropped off a file at his place and accidentally walked in on a battle so intense, I vowed never to set foot in that house again. Decades passed. Victoria and I sat on our porch swing, gray-haired and wrinkled, holding hands as we watched a dozen grandchildren run laughing through the yard. We thought back on how our story began, and we both smiled. "Still thinking of running?" Victoria teased. "Never again," I said, squeezing her hand. "You caught me, and I'm right where I belong." She smiled, and I smiled back. Our hands clasped tighter. The years had not diminished our love. They had only made it deeper, stronger, an unbreakable bond.